Alright, welcome back to Fast Gadgets. So today what I'm going to do is install Windows NT inside VirtualBox. Many of you may not be interested in vintage operating systems, but I find them very interesting, and this was an operating system that I'd used for a long time as both a Windows server and as a workstation. So I'm going to go through the installation and do a little bit of setup. Just so you can have a look at it. Quite some time ago, we were using Windows NT for a variety of services, including what's now called Active Directory. So we were managing users with it, and we also used NT workstations. So I would have either Windows 95 and Windows 98 set up if I wanted to do gaming, and then for more reliable use I would have Windows NT 4 workstation set up. So I'll go through set up Windows NT server. The reason I chose server instead of workstation is because server will let me install all the different packages and services that are available with server, and I can show you some pretty cool stuff. Workstation, you can do that, but you kind of have to fudge it at times. Basically you get all the workstation capabilities inside server, and also all the server stuff. So let's have a look at it. I've started creating a new virtual server. I'll just call this one NT Server 2. I already have one set up, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Interesting thing about this server, it really cannot see. I'm going to go ahead and put the memory up quite high. The thing is, I don't know if you heard me talking about it before. For whatever reason, the memory does not display correctly. So I'm going to try and type in 2048 and see if we can get it set for 2 gigabytes. And I'm going to create a virtual hard disk. I'm going to use the standard VDI setting for the hard disk, and I'm going to let it be dynamically allocated. What's really interesting is we can't really exceed 2 gigabytes, and here's why. Initially, when you're doing the NT server install, it only sees 2 gigabytes, which was the maximum for FAT16 at the time. You can go larger, but it's only going to be able to see, is it 2 or 4? Now I can't remember. So let's just set it up for 20 gigabytes. Now what's interesting is, if you do this, it will only see the first 2 or 4 gigabytes. I honestly can't remember. We're going to find out in a second here. So that's a little bit of a problem, but once you install the service pack, it can see the entire drive. So I'm going to click Start, and it's going to say, hey, by the way, we don't have a ISO in the virtual CD-ROM drive, so I'm going to go down here and select my Windows NT server. And you can see it actually has the key in the name, which we're going to need a little bit later. So I'm going to click Start. Very, very tiny, hard to read. So I'm going to go to Machine and rather View, and go to Scale Factor and change it to 200, so it's a little bit larger, but for a while there it's going to be a little bit difficult to read. So it does see the 2 gigabytes of memory that I gave it. That's a major plus. And let's minimize some of this other stuff and get it out of the way. So wants to know if I want to set up Windows NT now. I'm going to click into the screen and press enter to do the setup, and it only recognizes the CD-ROM. I don't need to specify additional SCSI drivers because VirtualBox does a very good job of emulating the requirements for Windows NT 4.0. Now here's where it's saying that we're limited to 1024 cylinders. So I'm going to press enter, and I am going to continue this setup. It's warning me that this drive has more cylinders. So I press C to continue, and then back in the day we had to page down and read the entire license and then press F8 to agree. And it asks if this list matches our computer. I'll say enter. So here it's showing the unpartitioned space, and it's 8 gigabytes. Now if I actually format this as 8 gigabytes, it will not be able to continue the installation. I'm going to try anyway so I can show that. So I'm going to tell it, go ahead and format it as 8 gigabytes. I'll press enter. So it's showing the new partition. I'll press enter again. Let's try NTFS. I think the problem was before I had a drive size that was too large. So I'm going to try NTFS. Yeah, it says the partition is too large. Even though it's NTFS. I think it really is a fat limitation though. So I'm going to press enter to continue. I'm going to delete this partition, L to delete it, and we will create a new partition. No, I don't want to do that. So it's unformatted. Create a partition in the unpartitioned space. And I'll press enter. Yeah, I know that. So it still sees I gotta delete it. Get rid of it. Then create a partition, and I'm going to change this to 4096 and enter again. We will use the NTFS file system. Now it will format. So 4 gigabytes is the max. There's ways around that. I believe what I did at the time was install Windows NT, and then I used, once I got Service Pack 6 installed, I could use a tool like a cloning tool to actually change the partition size, because Windows NT did not have a tool built in to alter partition sizes back then. I don't need the exhaustive check, so I'll press escape. And then it begins the setup. So while it's working on the setup, oh, of course it would be done. One thing at this point, you want to go into the optical drive and remove the disk from the drive. And I'll press enter to begin the reboot. And pretty soon here we're going to need the key code. I'm going to grab that. I'm looking for the largest files. Right here. Right there. I'm not really going to do a rename. I just want to grab this key code here. Do a Control C. Bring up notes. We'll throw that key code in there because we're going to need it in the future. And I'm going to shrink this down. So it will ask you for the disk again, but it won't boot into the hard drive if you don't remove the disk. So you need to put the disk back in, and then OK. The mouse is terrible to use until you get the tools installed. and just type in some basic info here, and then next, and then the CD key 41913433253, and then next. I'm going to change the licensing to per seat so I don't have to worry about changing that. Again, Microsoft of course requires a client access license for a client to access a server, and you have to be really careful with this. If you're using Server 2012, 2008, this is still in effect, so you do have to buy the CALs, as people call them. And we'll just call this NT Server 2. I have one that I already set up, and darn, I wish I had that one running now, because I was going to join it to the domain, but I'll just do a standalone because I can always add it later. And put in a basic password. And then next. I don't really need an emergency repair disk. I actually went through and I had installed all of this stuff. Even the games, which is kind of silly. Windows messaging. Next. Next. We're wired to the network. We'll let it install IIS. We'll start a search, and it finds the adapter because it's just a basic adapter that's being used. And what protocols? We do not need the old IPX SPX protocol, which was used for can't even remember the name of the operating system now, but an older operating system. Probably don't need NetBEUI, but I'll install it anyway. So it's back IIS 2.0 in this version. And next. And it wants to know, do we want to run the Ethernet card in full duplex? We could actually change that. We could make it a 10 base T speed. And we do have DHCP running, so we'll go ahead and let it find a DHCP IP address, which you wouldn't do for a real server. It's wanting to know what services we want running. We'll just go with the defaults. And then next. And workgroup is fine. We're not a part of a domain, and then finish. And it wants to know all the different IIS packages we want set up. I'll say OK to the defaults. Let it create the default directories. All of them exist in inetpub, and then yes. And we need an ODBC driver for SQL. And we're not Greenwich Mean Time, we're Eastern, and not Eastern Europe. There we are. I don't know if anybody remembers, but on Windows 95A it would actually have a highlighted colored zone, and you could just click the zone. If you clicked anywhere on the map, it would switch to the appropriate zone. And then with Windows 95B and of course this installer, they switched it so you actually had to select it up here. It was a real bummer. I mean, taking away things that are very cool. So we have a basic VGA adapter. We'll just leave it at that. And it's going to run through the installation. Beautifully fast on a virtual machine. And once done, we do a computer restart. There, see, I forgot to remove the disk. So it's booting from the disk now. Well, we don't need that, so I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to reset the machine. and press enter. So it was interesting when I was doing my first installation of my server, ran into a few minor problems. For one thing, I couldn't get drop and drag to work, and I suspect it's because I didn't have Service Pack 6 installed. With Windows NT, of course, we did regular Service Pack updates, and the last one was Service Pack 6, which was cumulative through Service Packs 1 through 5, so it added all of those service packs. So if I do a host delete, I can log in, and VirtualBox does fully support Windows NT 4.0, and I hope they keep doing it, because you can do a lot of experimentation with older operating systems, and we're seeing things go away. This operating system cannot use Direct 3D. Okay, there's a way to do it, but that's a long story. So it says you don't have Service Pack 6 installed. You sure want to do this? Yeah, I'll do it. And I'll manually reboot later. I'm going to do finish on this one and do start and shut down. I'm going to bring up my initial Windows NT system. I just wanted to show you the installation, and additionally you actually have to shut down the system because there was no ACPI power off. So I will power off the machine. Okay, and I'm going to cruise back into my virtual systems and go into my first NT server, and you can see the memory where I've got it set. Let's make a change to that memory. System. So yeah, I can change the memory here. I wonder if I can just type it in 2048. Yeah, that works. And let's see any other settings. I did want to experiment, put in 2 CPUs and see how it worked. Acceleration, yeah, whatever acceleration it can do. I think all these settings are correct, and I'm not going to mess with those. Display memory, did I really only give it 4? Let's give it the full 128 megabytes. How about that? And 2 is the maximum scaling factor, and you'll see in a minute I've actually increased the font size so it's easier to read. So I'll go ahead and start that. Get rid of some of this stuff here. And press enter because I don't want to wait 30 seconds for it to boot up. And now I've got 2 gigs of memory on this one as well. And it looks like the video settings have changed. We'll find out. So on this one I did create a domain. Yeah, it looks like it's in low resolution now. We'll get logged on and we'll find out. Put. Well, it's running as a domain server, so logon takes a little bit longer. Yep, definitely running in low res. Alright, got the little snafu figured out. What it ended up being, so I'm going to log in. What it ended up being was the change to 128 megabytes of memory. NT just can't handle it. So now if we go in and look at properties and go into settings, it's true color, and I can change the settings. There we go. There, much better. Now, one of the things that I did, I see it's already on large fonts, so I don't have to change it. I did change it to large fonts. Alright, so how do you like my Java background straight from the 90s? I did install a couple of browsers here. it was very tricky getting things installed on the server. I couldn't get drag and drop to work, even though it's supposed to. So let's try that out. I'll just cruise over to documents here. And I'm just going to grab this one and try and drop it in here. Let's see if it works. Nope, it will not drop. Now, there is a way to turn that on. I'm going to see if I can figure that out. I forget where the setting is. Let's see. Devices, maybe? Drag and drop bidirectional. So it's currently set for bidirectional. I'm going to change it host to guest. Maybe that'll make it start working. And we're just going to grab this file. Nope, still doesn't work. The other thing I tried to turn on was let's see. Shared folders. So I created a shared folder in here and told it to go ahead and mount it, and you can't see it. So if I hover the mouse, it gives you instructions to use VBox server, and unfortunately if I bring up command and I ping VBox server, it doesn't know it. So I couldn't get that to work. So what I ended up doing to get files transferred to here is I created an FTP server on this system using IIS. And if I go into Internet Service Manager, I set up an FTP server, which was actually quite tricky. I did end up turning off Anonymous. I don't think I actually had to, but I did so I could log in as me. I had to make sure the directory was read, and I had to grant access, read and write I should say, on the directory, and I had to grant access as well to allow access. And then I believe I had to go into administrative tools, server manager, or was it users? Let's see. Yeah, user manager for domains. And I had to go into Mark and Mark's groups, and I ended up adding Mark to administrators. I don't think I really had to do that, but domain users was required. So once I did that, I could come over here, and if I do an ls in the current directory I'm in, do I have something I could send? Mozilla.pdf. So I could do an FTP 192.168.1.101, assume the Mark, type in Mark's password, and I was logged in. Then I could do put Mozilla.pdf, and it would send over any files I needed using the built-in FTP server, which worked great. I had no problems with it, and I was able to send files. So let's see, I think it will be an inet pub. If I open up my computer, C drive, inet pub, FTP root, you can see all the stuff I've sent over so far. And where is our Mozilla? It's alphabetical, Mark. Think about it. So there's no PDF program installed, and I grabbed the two latest browsers that works. I guess I would say Firefox seems to work the best, and surprisingly it is possible to do basic web browsing. Most sites are working with it, even though it's very old. Let's go to news.com. So yeah, you can still browse the web on Windows NT 4.0. Anybody seen the new Star Trek movie yet? I haven't seen it. I'm pretty excited. Of course, I'm a Trekkie. I actually was quite impressed. Let's see if we can open a new tab. Don't know how to do it in this version. New tab. That'll work. How about CNN? How's CNN do? Ain't looking too pretty. I remember this. I tried to go to CNN, but we can't really expect everything to work. How about Slashdot? Yeah, not the most beautiful, and I'll accept this certificate. You know, didn't I already say that? I'm pretty sure I did. Well, you know, not everything's going to work perfectly. So let's have a look in Task Manager, see if it's seeing my double CPUs. Here in Performance, looks like I only see one CPU. I don't know if I can alter that view. Doesn't look like it, but it should be able to do multiple processors. I don't know if I can change that view to show that. Only 20 processes running back in the day. Tell me that isn't awesome. And our memory usage, only about 300 megabytes currently. Now, what I am curious about, let's go into the C drive. So let's check the properties here. So we are a 3.99 or 4 gigabyte drive, and use space about 400 megabytes. If I go into disk management, let's see if we can find it, disk administrator, and you'll find most of these tools pretty much are the same as they are currently in Server 2012. So I'm pretty sure we cannot change this partition in this program. I would have to use a third-party tool. But if I wanted to, I could format the rest of the drive, create an extended partition, excuse me, an extended partition, and it is seeing the entire partition. That's because I've installed Service Pack 6. So just like in Active Directory, we had some basic administrative tools. We had Server Manager, excuse me. And it would give us some basic information: how many users, what's in use, shares that are being used. A lot more basic than the Server Manager today. And the big program, user manager for domains. We could go in and create additional users. We had an internet guest account, which is what you would normally use to go to the website and such. Let's see if the basic website is running. So I'm going to open a new tab and do HTTP 127.0.0.1, which is the loopback. And the web server is running. Isn't that hilarious how basic that is? I love it. Let's grab this and... Can I do that? I should be able to. We'll go ahead and launch. Well, I'd like to be able to launch Internet Explorer. Looks like something is causing this system to become hosed. What do you know? Let's do Control Delete. Can we get into... No. So apparently a simple cut and paste caused a problem. Check that out. Blinking cursor. That's ominous. Well, we'll just do a reset. That's the beauty of virtual machines. We don't have to worry about it, right? I think it'll come up fine. Windows NT, of course, uses the NTFS file system, and it was quite resilient. And there's build 1381, Service Pack 6 showing up. And let's see, Control Delete. See if I can remember my password. I was really curious to see how the default website would look in the original Internet Explorer. Oh, I hate these logins. If I just made the Windows NT workstation, it would have been much better for you guys. Okay. Let's see what we get. So I'm going to run Internet Explorer. I do not want it to be the default. I think I could upgrade it to 4.0 if I could find it. Not too worried about finding it. Yeah, there we go. That's what it should have looked like. Let's look at the sample site. A database. Can we zoom this? Doesn't look like it. Maybe this? There we go. Very basic HTML. I love it. So, theoretically, I could put this on the internet if I wanted to. I wonder how difficult it would be for somebody to hack it at this point. I know it seems like it should be very difficult, but the thing is, many people aren't used to Windows NT, so let's see what we can see in Network Neighborhood. Yeah, it's only seeing what's in its domain. But I'm pretty sure I made this a bridge system. Yes, of course I did, because I was using FTP to send files over to it. What else was significant back in the NT days? We looked at Server Manager. I don't think we have to worry about Client Administrator. You know what's interesting? I don't see Sites and Services, which are part of Active Directory, which lets you make multiple sites. So it's been a long time since I've done something like that. In Windows NT, I actually didn't have to worry about multiple sites. So Novell, that was the OS. Novell Network uses IPX SPX. So this software was designed to set up migration if you wanted to Novell. And let's see real quick. Migration tool for NetWare is broken. Ah well. So that's Windows NT in a nutshell. I wonder what Books Online is. Let's see if that service is working. Oh. Have to have the CD-ROM in. So it's not online the way we think of online today. But yeah, NT was really awesome for local area network management, user management. You know, that's what we had. We didn't have Active Directory or anything more sophisticated like we do in Linux. Linux, we can set up an NFS server. We can set up Samba. We have a lot of options with Linux today. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little tour of Windows NT. If you get a chance, maybe experiment with it. I did find this free on the internet with the key. I can't remember the name of the website. If it comes to me, I will put the link in the description. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.